They were received by a huge crowd, since their activities in South Africa were followed in India with great interest and sympathy. Gandhi was greeted as Mahatma, which means great soul. This title remained with him throughout his life, even though he never laid claim to it. In fact, at best, he tolerated it. To begin with, he embarked on a year of political silence, to journey across his country and to get to know it better. He founded the Satyagraha Ashram on the banks of the Sabarmati near Ahmedabad, which he moved to a nearby place 2 years later in 1917 due to an outbreak of the plague. It was here that Gandhi began to dedicate himself to the cause of the untouchables, whom he called Harijans, children of God. As he accepted a Harijan family into the ashram, many of Gandhi's friends and co-workers turned away from him. In fact, some of his own relatives, at least temporarily, left, together with other ashram members, as a protest against the revolutionary behavior of Gandhi in society. In the first campaign of non-violent resistance in India, Gandhi stood up against the suppression of farmers in the North Indian province of Bihar. Initially, he carried out an independent survey of the farmers' situation, who were driven to the edge of starvation by the British through the compulsory cultivation of indigo at low prices and high taxes. As Gandhi was ordered by the district officials to leave the district, he refused and expressed his determination to continue the survey in the interest of the public. He argued in court that his civil disobedience was not based on the lack of respect for the authority of the law, but his subservience to the higher law of conscience. Gandhi was acquitted, and he continued the survey. The report of the Investigation Commission finally led to the abolition of the compulsory cultivation of indigo and to the reduction of taxes. In the following 2 campaigns of civil disobedience, it was possible for Gandhi to achieve an improvement in the situation of the textile workers and weavers in Ahmedabad, as well as of the peasants in Kheda near Ahmedabad, who, because of a drought, were not able to pay their taxes. As a result, Gandhi discovered the instrument of fasting, not to put the opponents under pressure, but for his own meditation and inner cleansing, as well as for solidarity with the starving workers. After the end of the First World War, the Indians hoped for the restoration of civil liberties, which were restricted in accordance with martial law. When, however, in 1919, martial law was extended through the Rowlatt Act, a wave of indignation spread throughout the masses. For the first time, Gandhi called for a nationwide strike for a day, which he wanted to be seen as a day spent in prayer and fasting, as well as self-purification. This general strike was a prelude to a further campaign of civil disobedience. Huge masses of people participated in these actions and committed themselves to abstain from violence against people and property. The whole economy came to a standstill, and the country was in turmoil. Countless numbers of people were arrested and sentenced. A ban on public gatherings was imposed. As 2,000 people in the North Indian city of Amritsar gathered at a public meeting place for a protest demonstration, British troops pulled up and, without any warning, took aim at the people and began to shoot. The massacre claimed 400 victims and around 3 times as many wounded. As rioting of the people occurred ever more frequently, Gandhi realized his Himalayan blunder as he called it. He had called upon his countrymen to rise up in civil disobedience too early, before they were mature enough, and hence he ended the countrywide Satyagraha campaign. In his weekly papers, Navajivan and Young India, Gandhi now concentrated on social awareness, before he brought into being the non-cooperation movement in 1920. In a letter, he explained to the Viceroy that he can neither maintain his respect nor his loyalty for such a government which proceeds from one atrocity to the next to defend its immorality. Gandhi gave back his war decorations, which he had received for his medical service in South Africa, and encouraged his countrymen to boycott foreign clothing, all British goods, British schools and jobs and appointments in the British administration. He propagated the production of one's own clothing, and pledged in August 1920 to always wear khadi, a cloth of hand-spun and hand-woven cotton. Shortly thereafter, Gandhi reduced his clothing to just a loincloth of khadi, out of sympathy for the poor people of the country, and to demonstrate that he had taken up their cause by setting an example. To become independent of British cloth, spinning wheels were distributed in the whole country. At a demonstration in 1921, more than 150,000 pieces of foreign cloth were burned at a public burning in Mumbai. The spinning wheel was described by Gandhi as the sacrament of India. The Indian National Congress incorporated it in the independence flag. It became a symbol for Swadeshi, economic independence, which Gandhi and his co-fighters strove for, parallel to Swaraj, political independence. In Ahmedabad, Gandhi founded the university, Gujarat Vidyapith, in 1920, which was to help in preparing the youth for independence and to raise self-confidence among the people. Within the scope of the non-violent movement, repeated clashes occurred, to which the British reacted with violent measures and arrests. In the small town of Chauri Chaura, the police ill-treated the demonstrators of a protest rally, whereupon the furious masses killed 21 policemen. As a reaction to this orgy of violence, Gandhi ended the campaign for non-cooperation and went on a 5-day atonement fast. He was subsequently arrested and sentenced to 6 years' imprisonment on the grounds that he was responsible for the uprising and for agitating the masses against the British government. In February 1924, however, Gandhi was released from prison due to poor health resulting from an appendix operation. Since his countrymen had proved themselves to be not yet mature enough for the non-violent resistance movement on a mass scale, Gandhi now dedicated himself to spreading the usage of the spinning wheel and the abolition of the concept of untouchability. Although the British Empire was Gandhi's principal opponent, he continuously strove to reform his own society and to abolish its injustices. Gandhi perceived untouchability as an inhuman sin and a flaw in the Indian society. In his commitment to the Harijans, he achieved their free access to Hindu temples and their participation in elections. Gandhi's struggle against violence, even in his own ranks, continued. In the Indian National Congress, in 1928, a group of young radicals, among them the later Prime Minister Jawaharlal Nehru, demanded immediate independence from the British, if necessary with violence. They drafted a model of self-government and a constitution for an independent India. Gandhi achieved a compromise with his suggestion that the British be given a year's time to agree to the demands and to release India step by step into independence. The British, however, had their own time schedule and did not accept these demands. Consequently, in January 1930, the Indian National Congress passed a resolution on independence, which resulted in the Salt March, the most famous campaign of civil disobedience of the Indian independence movement. Gandhi had, at this point of time, reached the zenith of his popularity and knew that the masses were behind him, when, in March 1930, he took the pledge not to return to his ashram in Ahmedabad before the achievement of complete freedom for India, to the cause of the untouchables, whom he called Harijans, children of God. As he accepted a Harijan family into the ashram, many of Gandhi's friends and co-workers turned away from him. In fact, some of his own relatives. He founded the Satyagraha Ashram on the banks of the Sabarmati near Ahmedabad, which he moved to a nearby place 2 years later in 1917 due to an outbreak of the plague. It was here that Gandhi began to dedicate himself, though he never laid claim to it. In fact, at best, he tolerated it. To begin with, he embarked on a year of political silence, to journey across his country and to get to know it better. They were received by a huge crowd, since their activities in South Africa were followed in India with great interest and sympathy. Gandhi was greeted as Mahatma, which means great soul. This title remained with him throughout his life, even though, at least temporarily, left, together with other ashram members, as a protest against the revolutionary behavior of Gandhi in society. In the first campaign of non-violent resistance in India, Gandhi stood up